Good evening, everybody. Welcome to workshop number 11. This week, the show is dedicated to Zaha Hadid, who sadly passed away a few days ago. Zaha was an amazing architect, and it prompted me to put this workshop together this week with regards to concentrating on city architecture and photography of the fantastic buildings that we see every day in our cities of the world. So, as I say, this is a dedication in terms of a photography to the wonderful work that Zaha managed to produce in her short life. Thank you for everybody for joining me. I just thought I'd make that very brief dedication because I'm really was amazed by the work that she produced, and you'll see from a small comments that I made for this YouTube video, the buildings that she basically created in her lifetime. Excuse me, I'm still suffering from a little bit of a cold, but so I may sort of cough and splutter a little bit from time to time. So what I thought I'd do was concentrate this particular show on city architecture and photography, something which I really enjoy doing. And there are a number of quality photographers that I hope you're going to enjoy looking at today, and we'll discuss basically how they've gone about creating their work. First of all, though, as I like to do, we'll go to the Flickr group, and we'll have a look at some latest updates from our members. And there's some really good photographs being uploaded now. Thank you so much for doing so. So the first one here is by Stephen Green. Stephen, fantastic shot using an 8mm Samyang fisheye lens, a lens which I've always wondered about whether I should get actually, but yeah, I can see the reasons why you got it. Beautifully composed, lovely swans in the middle there, a little bit of a low-rise sun as well, low-level sun rather. Nicely vignette in the corners and the tops and the bottoms, and beautifully in focus. Let's just have a look at the details on it first of all before we go any further. ISO 100, and it's taken at 1/500th of a second. Now, obviously with the Samyang, you're not getting any information through, but I noticed you did put here in the XF data, that is, but you're getting the detail that you've kindly added f11. It's a lens which really we must talk about later days because it's so wide. The photographer doesn't necessarily have to worry about focusing because of the large depth of field that these lenses give. But I think we'll leave that to another time. But lovely shot, Stephen. Thanks again for uploading your image. And also, whilst I'm on the subject, let's go back to the shot that got me slightly confused with regards to the angle you took with regards to the ball ring in Birmingham. Thank you very much for the details on that image. I'm just coming up to it now. I hope, yes, you can see this as well. And really another reason for us doing this city architecture this week. Taken this lovely angle where you've squeezed in the ball ring between two buildings, and you've deliberately darkened down the corners to give this dynamic angle. Great work, and thanks again for your email. I really appreciate the feedback on that. Let's move on. A new member. Thank you for this. I think you pronounced the name Atzi Hold. Thank you for updating and sending the photograph in, Atzi. I hope I've said your name correct. Yeah, I love this street photography here. Where you've got the statue at the top looking one way with the child in her arms, and the graphic on the pillar looking the other way. Well spotted. I love the angle as well. I can't fault this at all, and neither can others. Look, 196 views, 13 favorites, and you've got 4 comments. So I'm not going to say anything about it. I think it's a great bit of street photography. Well spotted. That's the main thing about street photography. Well spotted. So thanks again for posting that up. Next one, Atsy's put this one in, a nice mono shot showing shadow and light, and this is what we were emphasizing, wasn't it, last week, where we were talking about shadow and light, looking for the light in your street photography. There's no people involved in here, so again, I would say this is a little bit sort of an urban type shot, that it's great. Lots of detail on the left hand wall. You're showing on the right hand side here the lightness coming through. Initially I thought crop that off, but no, it's important. It's important it's there because it shows where the light's coming through the pillars on the right hand side, and then you've got the woodland area at the back there. So great composition, nicely works. And again, look at these favorites, 23 and 5 comments. I can't complain about that. I'm certainly not going to critique the photo in any shape or form. John Ilko. Great street photo portrait here of a guy, by the looks of things, by what you've said here in the details below. You've got to know him, which is really nice. Yeah, again, eye contact, beautifully done. Again, I can't make any criticism of the photograph. Maybe just this up here, but that really is a very, very minor pernickety point, and I don't know how you'd get rid of that. So it's a street photo, and you've done well to capture it. Again, look, 33 favorites. Well done, John. A great image. Just hit the wrong link there. Sorry, go back to this one. John, you just managed to squeeze this one in. At the top, I would like to see a little bit more space. The steeple or the tower of the church is beautifully framed by the foliage. And of course, you've got the roof structure, which in actual fact, sort of in a way mirrors the leaves. So a nice composition. I would just like a little bit of a slither at the top so that you're clear of the cross at the top of the tower. Again, though, 11 favorites, and beautiful steeple church, perfectly framed, Brent Michael. So, yeah. Can't complain there. And taken with a Fujifilm X30 5.6 16mm at 1/1250th of a second, ISO 100. Great shot. A little bit of space on the top there, I think. Could have helped the image. Justin, thanks for uploading this one. Chinatown Alley. Yeah, Chinatown Alley. I think this is good, and it's very, very difficult when you're taking shots of alleyways like this, because that's what it is. It's street photography. You've got the person walking towards you. She's reading her mobile, like everybody is these days. You've got all this beautiful graphic work going on the top and the bottom, and the lines and the dustbins. It's great street, and it's a good cross section of urban work as well. I'm disappointed for you. You haven't had any favorites on this one. Now, the only thing I would question, and it is a minor, is this red sign on the left-hand side. To me, it matches with the red bag, fair enough, but it is a little bit of distraction. I would have been tempted to crop that off, or put a vignette just to tone it down a little. That's the only thing I would say about it. It's nitpicking, I know, but hey, I'm trying to help you to improve your photography. Justin, please take it as a comment. It's not a critique, because I've done work like this down alleyways, and I had comments made because there were stickers in the windows. So I'm just trying to sort of portray those points to you as well. One lovely shot here, Justin. I like this, Justin. This is a great shot. The train moving through the train station, and you've got the lady there on the bench waiting for her train. Light right in front, dead center. I'm not bothered by that. That's a F8. That's probably why you got their starburst. That's fine. A beautiful blur of the train and the bridge in the distance here. I like it. Again, you should have favorites on this one, so I'm disappointed for you. I really like it. Thank you so much for posting that one up. This one is Stephen Green. Can't fault it, Stephen. Again, basically, there's no XF data here. Yes, there is. No, there isn't. No XF data. That's a shame. I'm assuming it was something like F8, F11, possibly. Beautiful shadow off the Atlas here. I like that. Probably just a little bit wide on the left-hand side, but hey, what am I? 15 favorites. What do I know? Just a comment on your work. Thank you, Stephen, for posting it up. Hit the wrong link again, but that doesn't matter. We've seen the one by Stephen of the Swans, and then Peter showing the bike racks. I've seen bike racks like this, Peter. You go out to Amsterdam and places in Northern Europe. God, you want to see the bikes outside the stations. It's amazing. So well done for spotting this and taking this image. And it, again, it's street, it's activity. You got the bike rack, you got the fellow taking his bike off. He's obviously just standing up there to make some adjustments, probably putting his clips on or something, or about to do something else. But that's great. Now, there's just one thing. This little white spot here, I don't know how you'd get rid of that. It's obviously a street lamp on the other side of the brickwork. It is a distraction, but I honestly don't know how you get rid of it. So unless probably just cropping straight down there, but then you need this bike. So hey, that's what we have to put up with street photography. Be a little bit mindful next time. I think if you just moved a little bit to the right, you would have got rid of that white light, and you still had the same composition. So just keep an eye out for that. That's the only downside. And again, I'm disappointed you haven't got any favorites, because you deserve some comments on that. Finally, I like this one. This is a lovely shot. Mum cuddling her daughter, I'm assuming. Let's have a look. There's no EXIF data. That doesn't matter. It's a great shot. I really like it. Yeah, it tells a story. I don't know if she's been upset or whether the mother is upset, but it tells a story. I really like it, and you need favorites on that. I'm disappointed for you. So thanks, Fashion D, for posting. Keep them coming in. It's really, really great. We're starting to see some guys joining our group slowly but surely, and I love it. I love it. As long as you don't mind me making comments, I'm not going to rip them apart. There's no point in me doing that to kill your enthusiasm of photography like myself. So that's our nice little look at our Flickr group. And as I said at the start, this week is all about city architecture photography. Now, it's becoming a bit of a popular thing at the moment to take photographs of this nature, where people are really working hard on light and shadow, and they're almost taking it down to as close as you can to black in their work. And a lot of the work is done initially at the camera stage, where they've used ND filters to blur skies, in particularly clouds, passing clouds. But a lot of the work is done in Photoshop as well afterwards, more so than Lightroom. You can do some work in Lightroom, but I think the usage of programs like Photoshop and maybe Nik's software would in actual fact help you create this sort of work. So I'm going to go straight to, I'm going to start off with my work, and then I'm going to build up to the guys that really know how to do this sort of work. And believe me, if you don't get hooked on this work, then I'll be amazed after seeing this work created by these. These are just quality photographers. They really are. You may remember that I showed you a book called Kozu, which in actual fact was mainly about the type of architectural work. So you may want to sort of try and find that one on Amazon to have a look at this work. This is my work. I took this in Madrid, and it was after I saw the work of the fellows I'm going to show you, Irene, Julia, and Joel Chinchilla, that I came up with this idea of working hard on increasing the highlights, lowering the shadows, darkening the shadows down, and really emphasizing on contrast images, so that the blues became black in the sky. I didn't have any ND filter on these shots. These are all taken handheld, either with my old Nikon D200 or my present Fuji gear. So yeah, we just have a look at these. That one was taken at the PSV Eindhoven Stadium in Eindhoven, obviously in Holland. Again, emphasizing on the light, increasing the highlight slider in Lightroom, and darkening the shadows. I use Lightroom. I don't use Photoshop at all. So this is where my work is obviously slightly different to the others. This shot taken from in Paris, looking down the Champs-Élysées straight up to the Pompidou, the La Défense area. And the difference on this one is I've had a sepia tone to the image to get that cityscape. Another shot from Madrid. And the Schweppes building in Madrid as well. This one was taken in Valencia. My equivalent of the Bull Ring. Burj Al Arab. Another shot from Madrid. Another shot from Valencia, where I was doing an exhibition install. Final image I want to show you was taken at La Défense, where it's a total change from the mono. It's a color shot of an obelisk in La Défense area. I haven't got a clue what the tower is, but it had all these ribbons of color streaming away. And that one is entitled Whoosh into the Blue Sky. Okay, let's move on to Irene Kun. Irene, a guest on my show a number of months ago, in actual fact. Irene, in actual fact, is an artist. And it wasn't until an agent came to see her work in her studio once, and she said, why don't you photograph? Why don't you get a camera and photograph and work on your images? And that's exactly what she did. She went out and bought a Hasselblad with a I don't know, a lens, a 135 lens, I think it was, that she put on the camera. And she started to take architectural images. All this work now is in Photoshop, and this is her artistry coming into her work. All these images are taken from a book called Invisible Cities, and this particular section was of images in Rome. And you'll see that first one was the San Pietro. This is the Colosseum. Another one of the Colosseum. And you can see here the heavy use of vignette, the light and the darkness and the shadows created just to give this fine art feel to their images. This is one of the Pantheon in Rome. And this one is the Auditorium color image of Maxi, which in actual fact was designed by Hadid, Zaha Hadid. Where are we? A little bit of trickery with the Piazza del Popolo. Cupolo. You can see how she's working with the lights and creating fine artwork with the work in Photoshop. So that is Irene Kun. She lives in Switzerland, and her work comes through from painting art through to creating this sort of fine art work in her photography. Photographer, we switch now to 500px and a photographer which is in that book, Kozu. This is Giles McGarry. Giles lives in Suffolk, and this is really getting into fantastic work here. Look at the black, look at the silver, look, the light on the building. Absolute fantastic detail that you're seeing here of this building, and what a building it is. The Calibra in Dubai. Another image here. If I can squeeze out, we'll get the names of the buildings, I hope. No, he doesn't name it. That's a shame. Not to worry. The Shard. That is the rooftop contemplation. That's the Reichstag in Berlin. And here you see the example of using the ND stopper, the big stopper, to allow the sky to streak through, to give it that extra dynamic look. Long exposure, you can see, because these people must have moved after you've taken the shot, but they give that ghostly feel to the image. Lovely, lovely work. It's a straightforward building. You know, it probably doesn't look that dynamic, but by tilting it slightly, giving a little bit of a fine art angle, and then working on the scene, lightening the windows, darkening down the skies, making the concrete really dark, giving that real harsh quality image. And again, use of the ND stopper, taken with a Nikon 16mm f14 at 120 seconds, 2 minutes exposure. Hans Kohlhoff building in Gotham City. House of World Cultures in Berlin. Speedreich in Berlin as well. And the called Schützenstrasse, I think you pronounce that. Again, look, use of light where the light is coming through, obviously through the opening there, but then the ND stopper does the work for him by giving that dynamic skyline. 1020 mil Sigma lens at 10 millimeter, 240 seconds there. Let's just show one more of Giles's work. King's Cross Station, the roof structure. Notice how the photographer has chosen a particular part of the image of the building to show. He's not showing the whole image. He loves the structure. He loves the components that are creating this architectural design, and he's concentrating on that area. 10 millimeter f8, 1/250th of a second. So I'm not really worrying about the long exposure here for this particular image. Now we go to Joel Chinchilla. Joel Chinchilla is renowned for his work, especially using the big stopper filters on his camera. This one is the London skyline showing the Shard, and you can see the sky is just continuously moved. You've got really hardly any detail there, and you've got no detail in the river at all, because it's moving obviously with this whilst this image was being taken. Unfortunately, there's no there's details here. No, there's no details regards to the EXIF data, which is a shame, but that's not to worry, because the more we go on to looking at this type of work, we can see what Joel has created here. A lot of work in Photoshop as well, I would assume, because he's brought the greens out of the building here, but and a sepia type effect to these buildings here. But the rest is toned down. Moving on to the next one, similar type image. You can see the flutter of the flag there, very long exposure for the smoothness of the river and of the sky, and this sort of burst of light here to emphasize the tower bridge. Let's just have a look up here. 16 stops Firecrest filter, 24 millimeter TS lens. That's the lens where you adjust to keep your uprights. This is taken in New York, obviously. Same style, smoothing out the river and the sky, allowing for the reflection. And this is showing the new main building on the Manhattan skyline, where the Twin Towers used to be. This is probably more of the style which a lot of people would remember Joel by, a heavy mono, using light. A fair bit of work in Photoshop as well, as he's used layers to work on each particular aspect of the building. But there's one very minute detail to this photograph, which to me makes it the aircraft, which is right there. A lot of people would say it should be cloned out. It doesn't, but it forms part of the image. It gives you a sense of distance, and I think it's a wonderful image with the lightness of the buildings here. But that aircraft there, that just is the little cherry on the cake. Brooklyn Bridge, again, long exposure, adding to that dynamic look and creating a fine art feel to the work. Closing all this down, look, you've taken all the detail, the shadow down here with a heavy vignette, both top and bottom corners here. A little bit of light on the people walking past, but the main light is on the side of the Colosseum here in Rome. And that one, of course, in colours, you can see, which is not a regular thing for Joel that I've been aware of. And this one here, this is the Pantheon. Beautiful images. Again, working on the light, the reflection off the side of the building, and then allowing the outside of the area to darken down. So you're concentrating. You've heard me mention about using the vignette and the corners to concentrate your viewer into the image. And this is a classic example of that. Julia Anna Gospodaru, sorry. Julia is a fantastic photographer, an architect by career. She, her big fan, she's been on my show. She's a big fan of Zaha's work. And you can see where basically, as she says in my show, where things weren't going too well for her in the architect business in Greece because of the recession. She started to do more and more photography. She now travels the world, photographing buildings and lecturing on this style of work. She's recently made a book with Joel Chinchilla on the creation of fine art photography in buildings. And again, the style is very similar to Joel in the sense that we're working on the light and we're prepared as an artist to throw everything out, to just bring the vignettes in, be very, very courageous in the image and allowing the light to work for us off the building. And I find her work so dynamic. This one, obviously, the Empire State in Manhattan. Chicago skyline. Look at this, all the light here. Darkness, shadow detail, big vignette, a little bit of fluffy cloud there, just to give it a little bit of detail in the skyline, but not to take away the information and the detail that you want to be looking down here where I'm scrolling my cursor. Waves of Imagination, Angora, Athens. So this was taken. Beautiful subject in the center there. Light and shadow, so important in your work, so important. Chicago skyline. No detail in the river at all, no ripples in the water, just got the shadow, the reflection of the city in the lake. I think it's Lake Michigan, isn't it? And then finally, I'm going to stop here because this one, if you live in London, you can go to this tomorrow. This is in London. This is just down by London Bridge Station, just behind Hayes Galleria. It's a lane called Riverside. That going down the centre is a rill, a very tiny little stream, which in the old days what used to take all the rubbish away from the buildings. But this is a really popular place now to go if you're interested in city photography, city architecture photography, because the buildings around this area leading down to the Tower Bridge, and in actual fact, this is looking the other way. This is looking towards the Shard. So behind me would be Tower Bridge and the Mayor's City offices, which we nickname in London the Turnip Building. So a great place to go. I love to go down there all the time, taking images, and superb place. I'm going to finish in actual fact on the Houston image here, equivalence 1, Pennzoil Place, Houston. And I know Julia waited for this light coming through to shine straight through on the other building, and to work on that light and get that halo. And then she went to work in Photoshop. Fantastic examples of work, and a lot of them were work which had been created in real form by this fantastic artist, designer, whatever you want to call it, Zaha Hadid. May she rest in peace. So I hope you found that little synopsis of city architectural photography work It's something which I really enjoyed doing because I like going and doing my street photography, but I do like looking up at the buildings and looking for different angles, tilting the camera. I don't have the lenses which move the front element to allow for the to make your buildings upright, because I do like to see angles in my images. But if you've got a few hundred, probably £1,000 to spend on that sort of lens, then please go ahead and get one, because it does bring everything into perspective, and you get your straight verticals. Not saying that, of course, you can make the adjustment in Photoshop and to a degree in Lightroom, although Photoshop has got a better module part to the editing tool for uprights for you. But suffice to say, when you're out taking photographs of architecture, it is a big thing. And I keep saying this: you've got to look for the light and look for the reflective qualities of these buildings, and look for the angles. You remember Stephen Green's image of the bull ring. Look for the different angles, tilt the image. You are making work for people to look at and go, wow. And so don't be frightened to bring your vignettes in, enhance the highlights, lower the shadows, and yeah, start looking at doing work in mono, and then the odd one, make it pop with a bit of color. I hope you've enjoyed this little workshop. It's just a case of highlighting a particular aspect of photography, which is becoming quite popular now, especially because of the work which Joel and Julia and other guys of this nature are putting together. Giles McGarry as well. They're putting together, and people are seeing it and think, yeah, I want to have a crack at that as well. So they're going out there shooting, and then they're getting the work back and doing some editing in Photoshop, and like me, in Lightroom. Hope you've enjoyed the show. Tomorrow evening, if you're around, I'm interviewing a great street photographer from Australia, Teresa Pilcher. She asked if she could come on my show, and I checked her out. An amazing street photographer, and again, great use of light. So if you're around tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock, please join me, where I'll be talking to Teresa. Yep, it's going to be something like about 5 o'clock when I speak to her. Fingers crossed the internet will be working fine for me, and we're looking to have a really good conversation about her work, her new website, and all things street photography. So I hope you can join me for that tomorrow. With that, just like to say thanks again for watching this workshop. Until next time, I'll have to think of something. I haven't got a book this week. I thought I'd take a break from the books. I'll dig one out next time, mainly because I showed you the Kozu book, which obviously would have gone with this particular show. But anyway, great time for me to enjoy, and thanks so much for uploading your images, and keep uploading them, and I'll share them out next week. Thanks again. All the best to you. Good shooting.